Okay, let's unpack
the whole
this.
geopolitical
Imagine a
map
world where
shifts more
dramatically than any time since World War II.
Right.
An empire collapses, new countries are born, global power dynamics just completely change.
And it all happens peacefully.
Exactly. Without a single shot fired. So today we're doing a deep dive into the George H.W. Bush administration's, well, frankly, incredible national security record.
And the system behind it.
Yes, and the really unique decision-making system that kind of made this peaceful transformation possible. Our mission really is to understand how all that profound change happened and maybe what lessons it holds for us now.
Yeah, and the fascinating thing here is how this period, it just perfectly shows what the National Security Act of 1947 was all about.
Okay.
I mean, that act, it wasn't just bureaucracy, right? It was built on this idea that, national security, keeping the peace, it absolutely needs coherent, integrated, and this is key, apolitical decision-making.
Political. That sounds crucial.
It is, because when that system works properly, it's designed to give the president the best analysis, the clearest options, and sometimes the hard truths needed to make the right call.
Drawing on expertise from everywhere.
Exactly. Across the whole government, ideally free from, partisan fighting.
That coherent apolitical approach.
Yeah.
That sounds like exactly what you'd need for a time with so much upheaval.
Mm-hmm.
Can you maybe paint a picture for us? Just how drastically did things change between, 89 and 93?
Oh, the scale is, it's genuinely remarkable. I mean, first you saw the Warsaw Pact just dissolve. Gone.
Wow. Okay. The whole military alliance.
Poof. And right after that, the Soviet Union itself dissolves, just breaks apart.
Leading to?
15 independent states. Brand new countries on the map.
15. And the U.S. response?
Incredibly fast. The U.S. set up embassies and diplomatic relations with 14 of those 15 new nations almost immediately.
14 out of 15. That's fast.
Think about it. Before, you had one embassy in Moscow, maybe a couple of consulates elsewhere. Suddenly, this massive diplomatic expansion.
Right.
And the outreach was swift, too. A small interagency team went to Moscow, Kiev, Minsk, Almaty in mid-January 92. That's less than a month after they became national capital.
That's hitting the ground running.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And high-level meetings followed super quickly. Boris Yeltsin met President Bush in Washington, Camp David, late January 92. Then the first formal U.S.-Russian summit in June that year.
So a total reordering, basically.
Yeah.
New relationships, new alliances.
A complete reshuffle. And all navigated without a major war. That's the key takeaway.
It really is incredible. So with all that going on, how on earth did they also tackle something as thorny as arms control? Was it just business as usual?
Oh, far from it. And the record there is pretty unique, too. Really stands out.
Okay, but like what? Where do we start?
Well, let's start with the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. Start one.
Start on right.
Signed by Bush and Gorbachev, July 91. But the really smart part was how it was handled after the Soviet collapse.
How so?
By May 92, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan, they agreed to take on the old Soviet START obligations.
Okay, so they inherited the responsibilities.
Exactly. And even more important, Ukraine, Belarus, and Kazakhstan agreed to get rid of all nuclear warheads on their territory.
All of them.
Every single one. Plus, join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT, as non-nuclear states, and scrap their strategic bombers and missiles.
That sounds like a huge undertaking.
It was massive.
Yeah.
And complex, sensitive. But here's the thing. It was all completed successfully.
Successfully, wow.
Yeah, a huge win for non-proliferation that, we still feel the benefits of today.
Okay, what else was on the table?
Another big one was the Chemical Weapons Convention, the CWC, signed January 93.
How's that one fared?
Broadly successful, actually. It's
Yeah.
done a lot to rid the world of chemical weapons, but there have been challenges, persistent ones. Well, you've seen issues with parties like Russia and Syria violating it, and others, like North Korea, never even joined in the first place. So not perfect, but still significant.
Right. Imperfect progress, maybe.
Then there's the Open Skies Treaty. This one's interesting, based on an idea from President Eisenhower way back in '55.
Eisenhower, wow.
Yeah, finally signed in March 92, 32 countries. But this kind of raises that question about how long these things last,
Because it didn't stick.
Sadly, no. It really struggled later on. The U.S. pulled out in 2020, Russia followed in 2021.
Huh. So some agreements have legs, others less so.
Exactly. And then you've got the Conventional Armed Forces in Europe Treaty, CFE.
CFE, okay.
NATO and the Warsaw Pact had been hashing this out since, 1973, finally signed November 1990.
Long negotiation.
Very. But here's the irony. By the time it actually came into force in 92,
Let me guess.
the The Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union didn't even exist anymore.
Oh, wow. Talk about overtaken by events.
Completely. They tried to update it, but that failed. And eventually, Russia pulled out, NATO suspended participation just last year in 2023.
That's a real mix then. Some huge successes, some things that just faded or fell apart.
It is. It tells you a lot about, the fragility of international agreements, political will, trust. It all has to be maintained.
It's not just sign and forget.
Definitely not. The early successes were partly due to that unique moment, the leadership, but the later issues show how things change. Geopolitics shifts, trust erodes.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about unilateral actions? Did the U.S. do anything on its own?
Yes, absolutely. President Bush announced these really dramatic unilateral cuts in U.S. shorter-range nuclear forces in September 91.
Unilateral, meaning without a treaty.
Correct, just decided to do it, and followed up with similar moves on strategic forces in January 92.
And the Soviets, or Russians by then?
Well, Gorbachev in 91 and then Yeltsin in 92 immediately promised to do the same, take similar steps.
Did they?
The U.S. fully implemented its cuts. We reduced U.S. nuclear warheads by about 50% in just 4 years under Bush. That's a record no other president has matched.
50%, wow.
Yeah, although George W. Bush later oversaw another 50% cut, but over 8 years. Now, here's the crucial bit.
Okay.
Russia, unfortunately, didn't fully implement its side of the bargain, especially on the shorter range forces.
Ah, so that created an imbalance.
Yes. It resulted in a pretty significant Russian advantage in shorter-range nuclear forces that still exist today. It shows, leading by example doesn't always guarantee follow-through.
A tough lesson. Were there any other treaties?
One more major one, START II. Presidents Bush and Yeltsin signed it right at the end, early January 93.
What was the goal of START II?
To cut strategic nukes even further than START I, and really importantly, it aimed to ban all multiple warhead ICBMs, those big land-based missiles.
That sounds like a big deal for stability.
It would have been huge, but regrettably.
Let me guess. Russia didn't ratify.
You got it. Russia never ratified it. So START II never came into force, a real lost opportunity.
Man. Despite that, though, it's still a staggering list of activity in just 4 years.
It really is. And you have to mention the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program, too. CTR, or Nunlugar.
What was that?
An entirely new way of thinking, cooperating with former adversaries, helping Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan actually meet all those commitments under START-I, CWC, NPT, helping them secure and dismantle weapons.
So practical help, not just treaties.
Exactly. Really pioneering stuff,
Yeah.
focusing on shared security challenges. Groundbreaking, really.
So what does this all mean then? I mean, how was this incredibly short period so insanely productive, navigating global change, getting these major agreements done? What was the secret sauce?
The secret sauce. Well, it really boils down to the U.S. national security decision structure they had running then. It was honestly a textbook example of what the 1947 National Security Act envisioned.
Okay, how so?
Well, first off, President Bush was clearly in charge, no question. But he was assisted by Brent Scowcroft, retired Air Force Lieutenant General.
Scowcroft, a legendary name in national security circles.
Absolutely. Many would call him the most accomplished national security advisor we've ever had. He was a genuine leader, not just coordinating, but really guiding the interagency process and the NSC staff working under him, everyone pulling in the same direction.
So strong leadership at the top. What else?
Beyond the formal structure, there was this informal but incredibly important system.
Informal, okay.
At the top, Scowcroft had these regular, often weekly lunches in his office. Just him, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
The key players.
The absolute key players. And the reports are they operated as a real team. Trust, direct communication. No big egos getting in the way.
A team, okay.
Yeah.
And below that level.
For all that arms control and non-proliferation work we just talked about, there was another informal group. They called it the UNGroup.
The UNGroup, catchy.
Kind of, yeah. It was chaired by the NSC Senior Director for Defense Policy and Arms Control. And its membership was, well, unique.
How was it unique?
It brought together these experts from all the key agencies, state, defense, CIA, joint staff, the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency. But here's the key.
Yes.
They were senior enough to actually speak for their agency, make commitments, but junior enough to be real subject matter experts deep in the details.
Ah, the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Not too high up to be out of touch, not too low down to lack influence.
Exactly right. You had maybe an undersecretary from state, an assistant secretary from defense, a special assistant from CIA, the three-star assistant to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Real expertise, real authority.
Okay, that structure makes sense.
Mm.
But what made the ungroup truly effective?
This is crucial. The defining feature was that the members, they were genuinely dedicated to pursuing the national interest, not just fighting for their own agency's turf.
Those are rare.
It can be, but here it mirrored the approach of their bosses, Bush, Scowcroft, Baker, Cheney, Powell. And it really reflected those original aims of the 1947 Act, maybe more so than in many other periods.
So national interest over bureaucratic politics.
Pretty much. This structure, this mindset, it was like an antidote to bureaucratic inertia. Because they were empowered experts focused on the goal, the ungroup usually hammered out agreements, even on really tough issues.
And they couldn't agree.
If an issue had to go up to the president, the options papers written by the NSC staff, Scowcroft's team, they were mandated to present every agency's position fully and fairly.
No slanting.
No slanting. The aim was to give the president the clearest possible picture, the real choices, unbiased information.
That collaborative national interest first approach. It sounds almost, idealistic compared to how we often think of Washington. Was that focus ever really tested? Maybe, say, during a critical time like a presidential transition?
Oh, absolutely. And the transition from Bush to Clinton, November 92 to January 93, is maybe the perfect example of that principle in action.
How so? What happened?
Well, the day after the election, Scowcroft instructed the entire NSC staff cooperate fully with the incoming Clinton transition team. Full stop.
Full cooperation from day one.
Total cooperation. Now, obviously, the incoming team didn't have like a veto power over ongoing Bush administration decisions.
Right.
But the outgoing team made sure the Clinton people were kept in the loop, that they were comfortable with the major decisions being taken, because after all, the Clinton team would have to implement them.
That makes sense. Like handing over the keys smoothly.
Exactly. And crucially, the Clinton transition team fully supported President Bush going ahead and signing both the START II treaty and the Chemical Weapons Convention in those final weeks.
Even though Clinton would technically get the credit later?
Well, some might see it that way, but they understood the importance of those treaties for the country's long-term security. It trumped everything else.
So who got credit wasn't the point.
Not at all. It was another profound example of the national interest winning out over any narrower goal. Just get the right thing done for the country.
So what this deep dive really seems to highlight for me is that this idea of, coherent, integrated, apolitical decision-making for national security,
Yeah.
it's not just theory.
Not at all.
It actually worked. It was a real functioning model at a really critical moment in history.
Absolutely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, history shows us pretty clearly this model isn't some impossible dream. It's quite possible.
It can be done.
It can be done. The success of the Bush administration's national security machine, it just illustrates that when leaders really prioritize the national interest, when they foster genuine collaboration, when they empower expertise, remarkable things can happen, even when the world is turning upside down.
So the ingredients are known, in a way.
They are. We just need to, choose leaders and foster those experienced career officials who share those essential principles, the same principles that motivated the people present at the creation back in 1947 and the ones who applied them so effectively more than 30 years ago.
Right. So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on.
Yeah, consider this. We're still living in a world full of complex, dangerous challenges.
Yeah, totally.
So how might these essential principles we've talked about, that dedication to integrated apolitical decision-making, focus purely on the national interest? How could those be sort of reinvigorated and applied today? What would that look like now?